Voters have every right to ask hard questions of any candidate seeking office. But can someone tell me why we are once again holding Kamala to a higher standard than her opponent? We expect her to be intelligent and articulate, to have a clear set of policies, to never show too much anger, to prove time and time again that she belongs. But for Trump, we expect nothing at all. No understanding of policy, no ability to put together a coherent argument, no honesty, no decency, no morals. Instead, too many people are willing to write off his childish, mean-spirited antics by saying, well, Trump's just being Trump, rather than question his horrible behavior. Some folks think he's funny. So I hope you'll forgive me if I'm a little frustrated that some of us are choosing to ignore Donald Trump's gross incompetence while asking Kamala to dazzle us at every turn. I hope that you'll forgive me if I'm a little angry that we are indifferent to his erratic behavior, his obvious mental decline, his history as a convicted felon, a known slumlord, a predator found liable for sexual abuse. All of this while we pick apart Kamala's answers from interviews that he doesn't even have the courage to do, y'all.
Need I remind former First Lady Michelle Obama that Kamala is actually our vice president at the moment, and that this is the first time she's been in this position since she gave up during the 2020 Democratic presidential primaries? But of course, we're the problem. We're the ones that are asking for too much. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done this 3 times and continues to dazzle us with his answers, which shows you the extreme disconnect between voters and the Democratic Party. Because it actually sounds like they're angry at people for judging Kamala Harris's answers. Now, this is just kind of strange, given the fact that this is part of her job. Not everybody is going to be happy with what you have to say. It's up to you to try and convince people otherwise. But this is obviously not going to do it for the former First Lady.
That too many of us are still confused and buying into the lies and distortions from people who do not have our best interest at heart. So I want to address some of these concerns head on. Because when you lay out the options, this choice isn't even close. But whether it's online or in the media or in our social circles, there are folks who say they're not sure about Kamala. They accuse her of not providing enough policy detail. Some wonder, do we really know her? Is she too aggressive? Is she not aggressive enough? There are folks sowing seeds of doubt about whether she's who she appears to be.
So here's something that the left has to remember. They initially campaigned with the guy that 14 million people voted for. Remember that guy? Remember his name? He's the incumbent president, Joe Biden. He was the guy that was supposed to be rallying the troops come November 5th. But something changed as soon as he was left to talk for himself in a debate. In fact, the American people quickly realized that he wasn't fit for office. Mainstream liberal media switched their take and suddenly attacked their own presidential nominee. You had Nancy Pelosi out there talking about him stepping down. And yet Michelle Obama's wondering why some people aren't aware of who Kamala Harris is. Well, she's been campaigning for just a couple weeks. And in that time, she really hasn't done much to answer any of our questions. Now, again, we're being told that we are the problem. These people are professional gaslighters, aren't they? Even though it was their decision to have her enter this late in the game, they just kind of installed her. Now, speaking of which, Kamala Harris wasn't having a good day here. In fact, she was heckled by the crowd, and I want you guys to watch her turn around multiple times to try and ask for help because she's completely ill-prepared to face the American people like this. Now, what's also clear is how her mood quickly changes when she's challenged by the people. Watch.
And I got something for or as a certain former president would say, yes, we can. So yes, we can, and yes, we will. And we will win because together, and this is about all of us, We are fighting for America's future. And we understand the opportunity we have before us to turn the page on the fear Thank you all. And listen, on the topic of Gaza, we must end that war. And we must end the war and bring the hostages home. But now I am speaking about 2024. All right. So listen, we have to understand the opportunity we have before us to turn the page on the fear and the divisiveness that have characterized our politics for a decade because of Donald Trump. We have an opportunity to turn the page and chart a new and joyful way, dare I say joyful, way forward.
This is the best that they can come up with? Going back to blaming Trump all over again? Now, speaking of which, Michelle Obama also talked about voters who are still undecided, or maybe those within the crowd that are thinking of voting for Donald Trump. So she pretty much put them in the undecided voter camp. According to her, if you're pissed off about what's happening in the country, tough luck. But that doesn't mean that you get rid of the very same people who created the problems that we face today. Watch.
It is reasonable to be frustrated. We all know we have a lot more work to do in this country. But to anyone out there thinking about sitting out this election or voting for Donald Trump or a third-party candidate in protest because you're fed up, let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. So, are you as men prepared to look into the eyes of the women and children you love and tell them that you supported this assault on our safety?
What is it about this campaign threatening men for wanting to vote for Trump or anybody else other than Kamala Harris? Why is it the fault of men for wanting to have a good economy? Is it because they keep pushing for this narrative that Donald Trump will put in place a national ban on abortion? Something that he's never actually pushed for? Now, what's really alarming, guys, is that most of us care about the cost of goods. Most of us care about being able to provide for our families, and yet they're still making it an issue of misogyny. The problem's not about gender. They're like making up problems. The problem is that we've had Kamala Harris as vice president for the last 4 years. No one's complaining about her being a woman, and many voters feel as if these last few years have been some of the worst years of their lives financially.
The precipice of an incredible shift, the brink of history. I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother. About the world our children and all of our children live in. A world where we have the freedom to control our bodies. Where we're not divided.
Now, to her credit, she spoke for what, almost 5 minutes? Now imagine having to wait almost 3 hours and be given less than 5 minutes of pep talk. This led to the inevitable, guys. None of these people wanted to stick around so that Kamala Harris could talk about the middle class family that she grew up in or her working at McDonald's. Many of them left right as soon as she stepped up on stage. Watch.
The Kamala Harris rally in Houston, Texas was absolutely insane. You saw Beyonce and Kelly Rowland walked out. Kelly looked like Beetlejuice. And then after that, Kamala walks out, right? She gives him the hug, and everybody's so mad because they're like, what? Beyonce only spoke for 3 minutes? I thought we were going to get a free concert. Wait, what? What's going on? Wait, why is she hugging Kamala? I thought this was a concert. Oh, and then Kelly and Beyonce have a nice little moment, reminiscing. And then everybody realizes it was a bait and switch, and they walk their butts out. As soon as Kamala got on that dang stage, everybody was pissed off, rightfully so. They duped us. They duped the entire city of Houston, Texas. 30,000 pissed off people right before an election less than 2 weeks away. What is Kamala Harris thinking? It was a night to forget, I'll tell you that much. Kamala Harris should be ashamed.
And I got a feeling that Kamala Harris was feeling ashamed a lot of times during this rally. The clip that I showed you earlier, it wasn't the only time that she got booed. She was booed multiple times. And it's unbelievable that as the vice president, she has no idea how to respond. She just standing around, looking for help. It's like she just kind of kept freezing up as the boos kept getting louder. Watch. Newsflash, you did get distracted. She literally froze for a few seconds because she wasn't expecting to get all this pushback.
So Beyonce went up, spoke for a couple of minutes, and then left, and the place went crazy. They booed the hell out of everybody. They thought she was going to perform. Now, I would have no interest in that, but they said, and what happened is my opponent got up and started speaking. They booed the hell out of her. It's crazy. So they have to use people to get people to come, and then they send buses. We don't send buses. Everybody comes. We're just going to make America great again. It's very simple.
Now, you might think that this is misinformation and that nobody actually booed Kamala. But here's the thing, guys. Trump isn't lying. And to be honest, I think he downplayed just how bad it got.
It's no wonder that Kamala Harris was just officially endorsed by IRS agents. Do you believe it? That's when you'd say, I'd rather not have that endorsement. But I've been endorsed by virtually every police group in the entire nation. Every police group, almost every sheriff's group, every police group, every one of them. We just had one, the Fraternal Order. We just had 400,000 policemen. That's the biggest of all the unions, and they endorsed me. And this is the first time in decades, just got endorsed by the rank and file members of the Teamsters, which I happen to think is amazing. That was a surprise. That's automatic for the Democrats, and they, now the bosses didn't endorse me, but they had a problem because they got 30% of the vote. We got actually 60 or 61% of the vote. Can you believe it? So the people that were in the 61, the people that want us, they said, well, how come you didn't endorse them? They're just going to take a piss. But maybe that's okay. That's all right. We know where they stand, and that's good. Kamala Harris is the candidate of the tax collectors and the Washington bureaucrats. I am the candidate of the American worker, and I always will be. I always will be.
The distinction between the two could not have been any clearer.
You think some of the resistance of some men, black and white, is misogynist? And are you proud to see that most Americans, even being polled, have no problem supporting a woman at all? And I'm one that lived from Shirley to Kamala in terms of these campaigns.
And I have an emotional reaction to you raising the point of Shirley Chisholm, because it is on her broad shoulders that I stand, and so many of us stand. And we have come a long way, to your point, and on your specific point about including the fact that I have the support of countless black men who are in elected positions, including on just this afternoon and 2 church visits today with the mayor of Atlanta. That being said, I think that you are absolutely right, that there is this narrative about what kind of support we are receiving from black men that is just not panning out.
Welcome to Identity Politics, folks, where it doesn't matter if you can do the job or not. All that matters is the color of your skin or your gender. Straight up DEI stuff. Although many would argue that they're not voting for Trump simply because he's a man. All they're doing is voting for the same guy who's proven himself before in the White House. Unlike the vice president who's repeatedly shifted the blame of the issues that we're facing today to Donald Trump. Now, speaking of the blame game, you heard how Kamala Harris changed the question from black and white men to just black men, further pushing on the message that was started by former President Barack Obama, and others who feel the same way are now coming forward.
In the context of the vice president, were you trying to send a message?
That we've got to be able to vote, that misogyny is still real in our community. We've got to address it head on and not act like it doesn't exist. The reality is, if black men had voted, Stacey Abrams would be a governor. And so I think that we've got to do some real redress, that after racism, the biggest ill in America is sexism. And I think it's part of the responsibility of this generation to deal with it head on.
So what happened to free will? What happened to making your own choices in life? Because they can't accept the fact that more and more black men are steering away from the Democratic Party. That's why. And the best part is that they only have themselves to blame for that, even though they're going to try their best to have a scapegoat if Kamala Harris does lose this election. And to be honest, guys, mainstream liberal media has been doing its best to help the vice president in this race, even going so far as to lie to the American people by manipulating footage from an interview. Now, I covered this in a previous video where Donald Trump is now calling for CBS to be taken off the air by the FCC. So it's time for them to stop telling voters what to do. Instead, they should give voters a reason to support them. Something that might be a little bit of a challenge for the Democratic nominee. Almost as challenging as trying to one-up Trump when it comes to public events. His McDonald's part-time job seems to have just pissed off a whole lot of people, one of which was AOC. Now, I covered this in a previous video where AOC is shouting at the top of her lungs because she's just so angry at Trump for doing this. Make sure you guys watch that video after this one. As always, thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for subscribing and sharing this video. I'll see you guys next time.